We'll delete the inappropriate.
Say that again?
I said we'll delete the inappropriate parts, okay?
Okay, yes, I can go back in and edit before I send it around. So welcome everyone to our fifth We Are Pilgrims on This Earth seasonal study. We've been to Egypt, 3 of those, the first 5 times. One of them, St. Catherine's Monastery. We started our journey in Palestine and Israel last time with Maria Curry and her experience of living in Palestine, being in one of the only all-Christian village left in Palestine, and as the politics of the Middle East continue to play out, and it gets harder and harder for any Christians to stay and to live there. She shared with us their vigilant efforts to maintain a Christian presence in the Holy Land, and experiences of some truly remarkable people over there. And when I thought after our session last time about who can I ask to speak about the Holy Land, and we saw how hard it was on Maria to wake up at 2 a.m. and talk with all of us. I just was thinking, I know some people, I may not know them well enough to ask that of them that live in the Holy Land, but I did. My mind right away went to my dear friend, one of my favorite people in this life, Father Gerasimos Macris. Father and I have known each other since he came to Hellenic College, and I was a last year student at Holy Cross. I think we had 2 years we overlapped together. And I was actually classmate with his older brother, George. Afterwards, Father and I, our paths crossed as I would come occasionally to Greece as a pilgrim and leading a group of pilgrims to go to the Holy Mountain. And we would visit him at Moni Vlatadon in Thessaloniki. It's a hill. It could be its own talk in an own place of pilgrimage. It's the location where we believe the synagogue was that St. Paul preached in when he went to Thessaloniki. And it has this tremendous view of the city, and Father was living and working there at the time. And since then, after that, he became the Dean of Students up at Holy Cross, and we worked together often in my capacity of being on the Alumni Association. Our friendship continued to grow. We shared more and more kind of people knowing both of us and on their own spiritual journey together. And then many years ago, how long ago, Father, now you left Hellenic Holy Cross and went to a different Holy Cross in Brooklyn. At least 15 years ago? Maybe not that.
Happened over 16 years ago.
Over 16 years ago.
So from Brookline to Brooklyn.
And I had 2 experiences of going on pilgrimage before journeying with Father Gerasimos, but I really attribute that trip to Father Gerasimos as kind of giving me even the hope that I could potentially take groups of people there myself, but feel like I had enough of an understanding. I have here the notes of Father Gerasimos that I actually used in a different way when I gave like an all-day retreat on the Holy Land. But there's just pages and pages of Father's notes on each one of these places, and he took very meticulous notes of as he would journey through the Holy Land. And I guess you used some other sources as well. And I still, to this day, you go back to his notes as a main resource for me. But I came to also see in Father Gerasimos a person who had a great love for the Holy Land. And of course, that stems from his great love for Christ, his desire to serve the church. And so we're very blessed to have him with us tonight. And as complement to his synagogies. Is that the right word, Father? His leading us in pilgrimage to the Holy Land through pictures. We have pictures that I'm going to put on the screen now from our. I am going to share sound because there are a couple of video clips that we might want to look at. But these are pictures from our journey in February of 2014. And I just need to move this so I can begin the slideshow. Oh, you know what? If I do it this way, then it's going to rotate on its own from slide to slide, and I don't want that. So let me escape that. And instead, we'll do it this way. So can everybody see that? It's the part the
thumbnails now.
You're just seeing thumbnails.
We're just seeing little boxes of pictures.
I have to open it first and then.
Okay.
We'll click it again.
So I do have to open it as a slideshow. I can't just go to certain thumbnails. Oh, I have to share. Are you seeing the thumbnails right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So does anybody know how I can, once I set it on slideshow, how I can stop it from going on its own from slide to slide?
Well, Father, maybe you could just keep it like that, and you can just, if you press the right or the left, you can, or pause them, whatever the case may be. You can do it that way too. So
is there a pause that can be hit?
Father, try double clicking on it, and it might give you an arrow, so you can go from one screen to the other.
Right.
That just fast forwards it.
Yeah, but you can always go back if you need to. It's okay.
Like manually, I guess, instead of having.
Oh, I can double click. That creates a pause. Okay, good. Okay, so obviously, this just is a reminder that you have to park long distance if you're going to go to Jerusalem, and that was, as I said, these are okay. And some of the group, as we're making our way through customs in Israel.
So
we'll stop here with our first location when having arrived in Jerusalem. Father, take it over.
So Father, maybe before as my introduction, with your permission,
please.
And based on your questions too, a little bit, here a few thoughts that I have as we're about to go on this journey of pictures. Number one is I really believe it's important that everybody takes the time to go to the Holy Land. There's many pilgrimages, and we live in the United States, and we had the opportunity of going. If you go to a pilgrimage, it's an opportunity to see the historical places, Thessaloniki and Egypt and other places of that nature, and to see where the saints actually lived, to see where St. Paul preached, to see relics, to see those things are here, but it's just the beginning of those realities. Okay, we don't have the history behind that. To see churches that are, 1,500, 1,600 years old, I think that's all important. But what's special about the Holy Land is that Jesus Christ walked there. And it is the holy of all the Holy Lands. And as we're seeing these pictures, unless you're actually there, it's like, okay, we'll be sharing the pictures, but the holy presence is also felt. And I know you have the pictures you want to show, but I'm going to share some stories, and please feel free to interrupt with me. And I remember I've gone like 5 times to the Holy Land myself. I wish I had more time, maybe 6. And there was one trip that I took, not with you, Father, even though it was a beautiful trip with you. You were, I was the historical, factual things. You were the spiritual element of the trip. with your beautiful presbytera. But one thing that there was one trip that there was a lot of scuffle going on between Israel and the Palestinians. And a lot of people says, let's cancel this trip. Let's not go to this trip. We cannot go to this trip. And I even had some neighboring priests call me and says, Father, don't try to be a martyr. You should cancel the trip. So I was really in a dilemma if I should go to this trip or not. This was my thing, my third trip that I had planned. And that morning, it was the last day I had to make a final decision if I'm going to go or not go. And as that morning, I read in the epistle reading that by faith, Moses, took the people out of Israel. By faith, all these different people of the Old Testament. So I said, okay, by faith, we want to go. So I asked my group, there was 50, who wants to go? And 25 more or less wanted to go. Well, when we went to the Holy Land that year, besides the fact there were very, very few crowds, because you experience crowds when you go to the Holy Land. And in one sense, it kind of detracts. Okay, you have this beautiful vision of being by yourself, like in the movies. Okay, and you have also the reality of there being a lot of people there. Okay, I've never been to Holy Week. I can imagine even more if it was doing Holy Week, craziness of Holy Week, holy craziness of Holy Week. But because a lot of less people there, there was in every trip I've been to, there was always this beautiful scent, and I felt there was like the Jesus Christ beautiful scent. Okay, like kind of like you would smell with the relics and so forth. And this scent you would have like at the Apokathilos, the place that Jesus Christ is taken down by the cross. You would smell a little bit, in the tomb of Christ and so forth. This time though, and I really, really felt that it was because this group here went with faith. We did not just go with pilgrims. We're taking a risk financially and maybe even our lives, because everything was perfect, nothing happened, but because we took the faith and we went to this group. And I will share with you two things. Well, one of the places that we go through was called the Via Dolorosa. And the Via Dolorosa is basically the road from Pilate's palace to the place of the cross, to Golgotha and so forth. And again, you see the movies and you think that, oh, it'd be a nice place to walk around, but really it's going through these narrow streets lined up with the tourist places and Kodak films and postcards and so forth, right, Father? Okay, so we have this beautiful view of what's going to be there in a movie mind, and then you have the reality of this place. But there's one spot on the Via Dolorosa that when Jesus Christ was carrying the cross, he fell multiple times, as we know, and his handprint got imprinted on the ground. And they've taken out the rock and placed it on one of the walls on the Via Dolorosa. And this rock here is next to some store, maybe selling coffee or some postcards, whatever the case may be. So don't think like it's going to be you and the Holy Land. Is you and the Holy Land and the shops and the tourists and all these things like that. I'm not trying to discourage you or anything like that. We definitely have to go. In fact, I'm trying to encourage you to go there. And what made me impression that this place is not in the middle of any church. It's in the middle of a busy street and so forth. But on that trip, I was about a yard away from this rock, and I was about to go and kiss it because this is the handprint of Jesus Christ, and the beautiful scent of Jesus Christ was there. And I said to myself, nobody was, again, I'm a practical person, it's like nobody's there like pouring like sweet myrrh on it. It's the middle of the street and so forth. Then I went to the place of the ascension, and we probably can see some of these places. And now the actual place of ascension is owned by the Muslims. It's two sites that the Muslims have, maybe some more, but that's what the Muslims have. And you actually have to pay $1 or €1 to go in there. And we have to bow down and to kiss the actual foot place where Jesus Christ ascended to heaven. And there's a footprint there. The other half is in the Patriarchate of Jerusalem. And as we went down to kiss and venerate that, the same exact scent was emanating from this rock, which again now is in a Muslim core. It's a Muslim building now, even though it's our building, but it's a Muslim building and so forth. And then after that, we left. Across the street from the place of ascension is the Orthodox monastery of the Ascension. And back then it was Father Joachim. His mom was killed by the fanatical people who are there. And because Father Joachim was not waiting for us, we were kind of like, Imastel Elines, Anixtemas, we're Greeks, open up to us. Okay. So he finally opened up the door. And as we were in the courtyard, Father was finishing up something. He says, Permetador, please wait here. And until I finish something. So now this is February, we had gone. And it was winter time, of course, not like heavy winter, but it's winter time. And I found in this courtyard that we're waiting, the monastery that's about maybe, I don't know, 50 yards away from the actual site of Jesus Christ's Ascension, across the street. And then I see two columns there. And under each column, maybe like about 3 feet high columns, it had 6 names of the disciples and other 6 names of the disciples. And we're just waiting there for Father Joachim to finish whatever he was doing, to give us a little bit of xenai, or just a tour of the monastery itself. It tells a bit of the story. And when Father came back, we're outside now in a courtyard in the monastery. And then Father says, oh, by the way, you're standing in a holy space, because it was from this spot that the disciples were standing. That's where their names are here listed, where they saw Jesus Christ ascend, from the actual spot where the Muslims have. And as he said that, the same Jesus scent, I call it the Jesus scent, emanated from there. So going to the Holy Land, what I'm trying to say, going to the Holy Land is not just simply any place. It's not just simply any place. It's the place that our Lord, who became incarnate, walked, and so forth. So going to the Holy Land is a place that's 100% very different. Sometimes they tell us, we should combine it with going to Constantinople or other places. I think the only place that kind of fits together is like Mount Sinai, because that's another place that God put together. But the Holy Land is a place of its own. And with your permission, again, I know people maybe want to see pictures, and we could talk about different stories. When you go there and you come back, and we used to go every site that we went to, and we have to really say thank you to St. Helen, right? I mean, if it wasn't for St. Helen, the mom of Constantine, a lot of these places would not be known. St. Helen, after she led her child to become the emperor, not the emperor, but the Christian emperor that he was, she went on a quest to find the cross of Christ, the tomb of Christ, and many of the sites of Jesus Christ. So we are very indebted to St. Helen, who is the one who actually built the churches, the original churches. There's only one church that's still the real church in the beginning. That's the Bethlehem Church. And so, but as you go to these places, and we always, our routine is that we read the passage. So let's say we're at the place of Bethlehem, we read Jesus Christ's birth. If we're the place of Golgotha, we read his crucifixion. If we go to Cana, the wedding happened, and so forth. But once you go there, when you come back, you never, ever, ever, ever read the Bible the same way. Your mind will always go, oh, Jesus Christ went to Nazareth and he was chased out of his place. Your mind goes to Nazareth. Jesus Christ was crucified on the cross. Your mind goes to Golgotha. Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem. You think about the fields of Bethlehem and the church in Bethlehem and so forth. So you'll never come back and read the same scripture again. It'll always be different. It'll always be different coming back there. And
Which is
and
why excuse me for interjecting.
Yeah, please, no.
The pilgrimage to the Holy Land is often called the fifth gospel.
The fifth gospel. But I would say, on the other hand, you have to be careful. One more thing you have to be careful of, and so it can become a fifth gospel. And that's why it was nice being with you, Father, because we have to be careful. There has to be a spiritual element. You have to be reading. You have to be praying, because then after a few 2-3 days, it can feel like it becomes like, if you're not careful, it becomes like, when you go to a theme park and you have like the theme park feel, okay? But it has to be real. It has to be real. And it only becomes real if you connect it to Christ. Otherwise, it's like you go from church to church and church and place, and afterwards it feels like you're going to a museum. It only becomes real if you're prayerful. And I'll share with this one more story that we can go to the pictures. Some people say, when did you feel closest to Christ when you're in the Holy Land? Of course, the beautiful ascent was there. I would say when I found some people who were poor and they were asking for money in the Holy Land. And, when you were giving the money to the poor and helping the people who were there, it felt like, you know what? You're close to Jesus Christ, and receiving Holy Communion there also feel close to Jesus Christ. So you have to go there and be in part of the divine liturgy. So we can go to the Holy Land and it can become this sterile thing of just a tour. But for you to be a pilgrim, you need to be a person of prayer, a person that reflects, a person that has studied, a person who prays. Those are my comments in general as we see these pictures. So we're not just here to just show pictures to you, but to show the whole experience and of living this. So in one sense, maybe you're closer to Christ just by reading the gospel at back home. Okay, if you're more focused than being distracted, with 50 people getting off the bus and then 50 people getting back on the bus again. And Palmer, let's go, hurry up, because we have to see so many things today. That's the right, Father. Those are some of our experiences that you deal with. Right. And then of course, after a few days, people start to bicker and fighting, like good Greeks do, right? Okay. Okay, enough already. Where are you taking us again? All these things, some of the realities of so the devil is there also, and Jesus Christ is there also. So a few things that and we have to think about as we're doing this pilgrimage in the Holy Land. So go on with your pictures.
Okay, thank you for that, Father. That was a wonderful. And let's start, I guess, from here. Slideshow. I double clicked. That's what did it. Pause. Okay. We arrived in Tel Aviv.
So I'm still seeing just the thumbnails. That's what I'm still seeing. I apologize.
Yes. All right. First, I've got to start slideshow. Still thumbnails?
Yes. I'm not sure which screen you're sharing. If you have another one that shows in yours.
All right. Let me stop the share. Go back to share screen. So yeah, I'm just going to the going to my file that says Holy Land 2014. And that's when I share it, it comes to, so does everybody see the thumbnails right now? Do you see this? Oh, okay, it's saying showing. Screen you are sharing, it showed me the same thing. Now, if I hit slideshow here, view pictures and videos as a slideshow.
Maybe I have to select all.
It says your screen sharing is paused. Slideshow is already, please close your first slideshow and try again. Okay. Stop share. I thought that would have just continued to show what I was seeing on my screen. This shows my inexperience at this still. So go to the share one more time. Maybe Jane, you can talk me through if I'm not doing this right.
I don't know if I can talk you through. You did have one slide selected only, so I'm not sure if that interfered or if you have some slideshow that preset. Did you see a screen that just had one slide up? Were you seeing something else that you expected us to be seeing?
So I'm opening up a file. And as of right now, I know that you're all seeing that. It has all the all this.
Right.
Maybe you have to select all the pictures.
Yeah, maybe unselect the one or select all. You just have one selected. That one.
There we go. Yeah, that happened before too. Now I'm realizing why that happened. Okay, good. Slideshow is already running. Oh, could it be already running?
You started a previous one? I don't know if it has forgotten it.
Okay. I don't want to select any individual picture. I want to run the slideshow.
Although when you selected the other picture, did you double click? Because it just showed the check mark. If you double click, it should automatically open up that picture.
But it's also showing the. See,
Here we
it's
go. Maybe.
it's just going to show that picture because it's the only one selected.
Is there any way you can select all of them? Is there a
I'm
select
gonna
all button?
I'm just going to highlight all of them.
And then plus, yeah. Right down.
Okay, now start the slideshow. You move this window away from the shared application.
So as you're doing this, Father, I'll just share some thoughts more.
Go ahead.
Okay, I entertain people. Okay, so another reality there, I think, is also very important to the people there. You know, there is what's called the fee. There's a symbol of like a fee and a taf, and it's filakes tu tafu, and these are the monks who are the ones who are responsible, monks and monks priests, who are the filakes tu tafu, the guardians of the tomb. Now, of course, they're not just of the tomb, but all the holy sites of the Holy Land. But of course, the most important of all of the sites is the actual tomb of Christ. And the how we say it, I always feel like task force, you know, feel like it's tough, the task force. And you know what's important about these people, that they're human beings. And most of these sites of the Holy Land, besides the monasteries, is usually there's only one monk in most of the sites. There's only one monk or monk priest that's there. And so I think to myself, how important it is that we go visit there. Besides our spiritual benefit, is their best spiritual benefit. Because imagine being by yourself at one of the holy sites and there's no pilgrims. I can imagine what they went through during the time of coronavirus, where there was nobody traveling, and how would these monasteries be supported without our funds, you know, our candles that we buy and so forth. So it's very, very important that as we go to the Holy Land, these are alive places. They're not museums. They're churches, just like our church, you know, your church in Reading or wherever you belong to.
It looks like Reading. It's pronounced Reading.
Reading. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay.
And Brooklyn is pronounced Brooklyn. No, just kidding. So how you say it? So it's very important. Some of these people are very young too. Some of these sites, and not to judge anyway, but you might say like a little bit on the more naive or immature. And I say to myself, I mean, not that I'm anything or probably anything. Oh, there it goes. But you know what? That's what they have. So good. The screens are here. That's great.
I
think you're somewhere in the middle. Where are you now?
That is the upper room.
Are we supposed to see sort of gray bars covering text? Is that what that is?
Well, right now I'm seeing there's gray bars, but we are seeing the pictures.
Okay, yeah.
Father, should you just start from this point on, or how do you want to do this?
I'm going to go back to the beginning.
Okay, I'm just going to continue my quick thoughts on there. So definitely, these people are here, you know, and they're keeping these places alive for us. Thank God, glory to God, and the importance of us being there to support not just them, but the holy sites themselves.
Yes. I just concur everything that you said. Every time we've come to this particular church, so everyone should be seeing the same picture, which is the Church of St. George, located in Lida, right?
Yep.
And this is the first burial place of St. George. And we're going to, in a second, go down to the crypt down below.
The reason why we went here first is because Leda is right next to Tel Aviv, next to the airport. So as we get off, one of the first stop or the last stop before we leave is St. George's Church. His mom was from Leda, that's why. So even though he died in, I think in Nicomedia, he wanted to be buried in Leda. And that's why sometimes you see an icon of St. George on a horse, and behind there's another person. That's the person who brought his relics from Nicomedia to Leda, which is his mom's town. Okay, that's where St. George is buried now.
Let's, Father, if you could just say the importance of St. George in the Holy Land and why so many churches in the Holy Land are named after St. George. Actually, last time, Maria Corey did mention one reason, which is the practical one, that the Muslims have a great respect for St. George. He's even mentioned in the Quran, and for that reason, it's a safe way to preserve your churches from the Muslim destruction or persecution, because they have such reverence for St. George. But we want to say a little bit more about St. George and kind of the saint of the Holy Land in a way.
Well, I mean, I can add much more, but I definitely, it's not just the Holy Land, I would say the whole Middle Eastern area. And also in Constantinople, St. George is very, very respected by the Muslims too. And they're afraid of him too, because he would come and to defend the churches or sites many times that they would have seen St. George. Here on this icon is also St. George with his parents. I think Polychronios, and I forgot his mom's name, but they too became martyrs. They were died beforehand. And in front are some of the chains that St. George was bound with. That's the black thing in front.
Here's my present, descending the steps to the crypt that's underneath, directly underneath the church that you just saw.
And this is the actual side of the two. Okay. Oios, Yorios, then it's upside down. This is Otopos.
Otopioforos.
Otopioforos. His relics are not there. They don't have a small piece of relics. His relics have been passed to different churches, but his grave is there. Hey, who's that? That's me, younger.
One of the things you will always do is when we visit the location of a saint or an event in the life of the church or scriptural event, is if there's a hymn for us to sing, we offer the hymn. So I think at this moment we're singing the hymn for St. George by his relics. There was something unique that they would do, that they would cover his relics with myrrh. We wondered if it was just forming naturally on that, but I found this out in Egypt too, that there's kind of two ways of using the myrrh. And one way is when myrrh, like myrrh streaming relics of St. Demetrius and so many other places, myrrh forms itself, and that's a witness of the holiness of a particular relic or icon or something, but also the placing of myrrh, which would not only done here, but for example, the stone where Jesus was laid when he was taken off of the cross. And it's a way for people to receive a blessing from a particular location. You can see people putting their fingers to the myrrh and then signing themselves with the cross.
The actual church that we're seeing here was twice the size, if not more, but the Muslims took half of it. So half of the church now, there's that wall that we saw, that's the Zamin next to it. So therefore, half the building has been destroyed, and they have a mosque now. And when we went there was a very, very young priest. So you can see the church to the left and the mosque to the right. And the church was bigger, but now it was shrunk back because of the reality of the mosque.
And that just strikes us, doesn't it, Father, that we think how odd to have like a church and a mosque right next to each other, you know, in our setting, in our thinking and circumstance of our own lives. But there, it makes sense when you think historically all that they've had to live and the Christians have had to kind of endure, and they have to get along. And so if the Muslims have a reverence for St. George and they want to put a mosque next to the church, you let them.
And the reality is that you know, for whatever things, they're there from the 7th, 8th, 9th century, so they're over 1,000 years there, and so that's the reality that we have to look into. I mean, that's just, we cannot say it's only the Israelites or only the Christians or only the Muslims. We all would like to have it exclusively ours. I don't think that's a reality though. So we have to learn to coexist there, and honor what we have and know it is the truth, but we have to coexist with the people who are there.
I believe this is the ancient port of Joppa or Jaffa, which, Father, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was where those who would travel to the Holy Land by boat, this was the place where they would arrive, and they would even go through a kind of initiation and be prepared for then their traveling through the Holy Land. They would find their guide, they would find the means, the camels or whatever else that they were going to use to carry their if we think through the centuries, it's only now that we hop in buses and go places that are miles and miles apart in the same day. The Christians for centuries did all of this on foot.
Right, and we see Tel Aviv on the top there, but you can continue with the picture. So this is all the site, I think, of St. Michael's, and the black is the Mediterranean Sea that we saw before. And yes, true enough, people came by boats traveling here, and they would be this would be the monastery now of St. Michael. Again, there's only one monk priest here. It is used as a parish too, and you see that as for those who are Greek, you see there's a lot of Greek use. The Patriarchate is of Jerusalem is Greek speaking. It's not Greece, it is Greek speaking. Okay, and that's where we can see the writing of the monastery, and we can see of Michael. Okay, and this is in Joppa, and this was the ancient city of Joppa, port city of Jaffa today. Very pretty also as a tourist place around the Mediterranean Sea, a beautiful sunset you would see from here. We just missed the sunset. So we missed out on that beautiful things. I believe all these are the icons. A lot of the places have been, destroyed. They've been done through the centuries. Some of them are in ruins. Some of them are falling apart. Some of them are being renewed. The different churches. So this one has a little bit more new life to it. You can see the icons that have been renewed, but definitely the church is ancient. I'm not sure of the exact century, but definitely it's an ancient basilica.
Weren't the iconographers, I think, Romanian or something like that? Here's
Something
a picture of 1994.
Yes. Yeah, so you can see the how things are being rebuilt. When there's love, things get rebuilt. And you can see how in 20 years this was built again. 1994, the church was built. And I think we're still in Joppa here, right?
Yeah, this is just a description of the little history of the place and the inn. I think this is the next day now, Father, visiting the Mount of Beatitudes.
Is it? So far,
is this maybe we hadn't left yet? Is this the wall?
This looks like they are now the Holy Land. I'm almost positive this is the Zion Gate. So yeah. The city of Jerusalem has multiple, I think it has 12 gates. Zion, when we see the word Zion is really, you can identify it as Jerusalem, but it's really a hill exactly south of Jerusalem. So this is the ancient city walls. So the city walls still exist. You can see the bullet shots on the wall. You can see all those bullet shots there. And through those, if I go through the gates, so I'm on the outside of the city. If I go through those gates, that's where the Wailing Wall is. So, but we didn't go there in our trip, the Wailing Wall. The Wailing Wall is the only part of the old temple. That's where the Jewish people go there. But here in Zion, which is a hill that's exactly south of Jerusalem, that's why people just consider it as being Jerusalem. There is this big church, which is called the Church of the Dormition. Okay, remember the sites are either Orthodox or used to be Orthodox and taken over by the Roman Catholics. Okay, this is a site that right here that is taken over by the Roman Catholics. Remember, the Roman Catholics have a lot of funding, so they can build this mega big, huge structures here. And this is where Panagia fell asleep, which is over the house where John, the theologian, because John was the one who was taking care of Panagia. So, and it's called the Domitian Abbey, which is kind of interesting because usually we use the word assumption, that Panagia was just assumed, but here we see that they do use the word Domitian. And we just saw that King David, because where the tomb of King David is in Zion, because that's where the palace of David was, in Zion, not in Jerusalem itself, it's in Zion. The tomb of David is right under the upper room. So now we're in the upper room. So that's another thing that is found in Zion. So we have the tomb of where Panagia fell asleep, not her tomb, and the upper room. And the upper room is actually the real upper room. Of course, everything's real. And this room had been redecorated by the Crusaders. Remember, the Crusaders came to the Holy Land to free it, I think in the 14th century, but they took over and for some years, and that is why it is what it is. Right here in this big room, it would not have those arches in the time of Jesus Christ. This is Crusaders, I think like whatever Gothic or Renaissance, whatever the case may be, medieval reality there. But this is the place that the upper room where the Last Supper occurred. And if we can pause there, there's a reason why these birds are here. And also the Pentecost happened here. And I haven't been to the Holy Land recently, but the Israeli people, because this is right over the tomb of Jesus Christ, and this is a very Jewish section of the Holy Land, only allow us to celebrate the liturgy here on the day of Pentecost.
Not tomb of Jesus Christ, the tomb of David, because it's owned by the Israelis and it's right above the tomb of David, right? That we're only allowed once a year in this space here.
Oh, I apologize if I said Christ is the tomb of David. Yeah, please apologize. Yes, it's not it's the tomb of David the king. Okay.
Which we're going to see in a second.
So the bird that you see here, this is the pelican. And what we see here is, again, this is medieval decoration, but the pelican, when there's no food, the pelican will eat from its own flesh and feed its children. And that's what we're seeing here, the pelican eating from his own stomach thing and allowing his children, it's the little pelicans eating, because like Jesus Christ gave of his own flesh for us to eat.
The only bird that does that.
Now we're going to the tomb of David.
And it's how we say it's separated between men and women. The tomb is big. It's kind of like this long, elongated thing, and there's a curtain, so men on one side and women on the other side.
When we went to do prostrations and to venerate the relic of the prophet David, the person, whether he was a rabbi or not, the Jewish person that was there got very, very angry and upset, because of course for them that's considered like the idolatry, like we're bowing down and worshiping a person, and they strictly forbid us to venerate the way we normally would have.
So here we are at the actual the abbey, the Domitian Abbey. So this is the site that Panagia fell asleep. It's not where she's buried, but this is where she lived And this is that where with John, the disciple. And now there's this huge, massive church on top of this area. And now we're in the crypt. We're on the bottom, and it was. And I would say at the bottom they have a statue of Panagia laying on her back. And of course, we're not accustomed to statues, but this is the actual spot. So all around, there's different sceneries of Panagia. There's little small altars all around this central statue of Panagia asleep. And there's different dedications to the Panagia. We saw the Lady of Guadalupe beforehand. We see a kind of a more visiting icon here. So the different artwork for Panagia all around here. So this is how the church looks from a distance. And actually we went a little bit more south, and also in Zion, the building to the right, if I'm not mistaken, is our seminary. I think that building right there is our seminary. Of course, just like any seminary, we don't have that many people studying, but that's the Patriarchate of Jerusalem Seminary. And now we're in the Greek Orthodox cemetery. So from the seminary to the cemetery, okay? And that's what we're doing. We're doing it through Zion here. In general, for the people who have passed away in the city of Jerusalem. And this is, I think, from the view of the cemetery further south. And this is it, Father? I'm not quite sure what we're seeing here.
I think this is
This is the Kidron Valley, and this is and so you can see that we're in Jerusalem now, and there's a valley, and then up above is the Mount of Olives. So the city of Jerusalem and Zion is on a hill. You go down and then up to the Mount of Olives, which is looking east. And in that kind of valley area, this is the house. Now it's the church, but it's a house of Caiaphas. And we can see that on top of this church is a rooster, because it was here in the courtyard of Caiaphas that Peter denied Christ 3 times, and the rooster crowed. So this is the house of Caiaphas. We see a lot of tombs there also in this area. And there's some famous people like Absalom buried here. Some of the prophets are buried here. And according to the Jewish tradition, because a lot of people want to be buried, they're buried in this Kidron Valley because they want to be close. But there's not just simply Jewish people, but also Muslim people. So there's different cemeteries here.
Was this picture of wasn't it near where a place where the Jews would burn all of their trash because there was like in that actually was called
Gehenna.
Gehenna, yeah.
Yes. So this is, so from the point of the cemetery, if we look east, we see the Mount of Olives. If we see south, that's the Gehenna. This was like another ravine between on the south side, and this was the garbage dump. And it was always on fire because there always were fires burning the garbage. And that's why it would say you'd be thrown into Gehenna, the place of burning, the eternal, unquenching fire. This is again the church of, I think, Galincu, which is basically the rooster church of Caiaphas. Again, we can see the Roman Catholics have this building. And you see Jesus Christ from here. After that, he descended. Actually, this is when from the mystical supper, he descended down. Well, don't worry about it. Too many details. But these are a few of the steps. Here are the steps that actually Jesus Christ descended from Zion, from the upper room. He went down into that valley we just saw, and down there is the Gethsemane where he prayed. Okay, where he prayed. So there's actually steps that Jesus Christ probably walked down, a real part of the old steps from Zion leading down to Gethsemane.
You see the ancient mosaic, and it's a word from the 121st Psalm. When the Lord bless you going in and coming out. And then this is the prison underneath Caiaphas's home, right? Because they would try people and they would keep them in prisons. And these were right more recently uncovered, Father, or something.
Well, think about it. Jesus Christ, after Caiaphas said, found him guilty of blasphemy, they had to keep him someplace. So this is Caiaphas, who had some prisons down here. So Jesus Christ was thrown into this pit and stayed here the whole night before the next morning, when he was brought early in the morning to Pontius Pilate's praetorium or palace.
So we went down into that low place. He would be thrown down. If you look in the picture, right, there was no like stairs down or up. So you would be thrown down, and the only way you were going to get out is if they like lowered a ladder or something to get you out. So where are we here now, Father? There's the wall around the ancient wall around the city.
I'm not 100% sure. I think from here, again, you can see those ancient walls.
We're going towards St. Stephen's Church.
Okay, so we are probably east of the city right now. This is the Kidron Valley, and here is where Saint Stephen was chased out of the city from the eastern gate, which is called St. Stephen's Gate. I think back then it was called the Lion's Gate, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a place where Saint Stephen was stoned to death, the first proto-martyr. And this is the actual place. This is under the church, actually, it's on the side of the church, but it's the actual places that that Stephen was lying as the Israelis and the Palestinians back then, of course, were throwing the actual stones. This is where he died, basically. And there's a lot of stones all over the place. So definitely it's very true that they can stone somebody there. So between the Jerusalem and the Mount of Olives is the area. It's called the Kidron Valley, but there's a little town in the olden days. And right there is the Gethsemane. That's where Panayia is buried too. But they also have, these are ancient olive trees in the grove here. And you can see there are like 2,000. So most likely these olive trees were around when Jesus Christ was here, when he was praying, in the garden. So these are 2,000 plus years old olive trees. You can see, people who know olive trees, how fat they become as years go by. And it's very hard to kill an olive tree, and so forth. So this is the garden in Gethsemane. And in there, the garden of Gethsemane is a Roman Catholic church. And again, the Roman Catholic churches are built over the sites of the visiting churches. And because they want to prove that they're ancient, they usually have a kind of like a sign that shows the footprint of the old visiting church and the new one. And we can see Jesus Christ here that is praying on this rock. This is a place of the agony. And it's surrounded by a beautiful gate of thorns, okay? And we can see that Jesus Christ, you can see the thorns. So that's the actual rock, and then we see the floor. The floor there where he was praying. This is called the Church of the Nations. I guess because the message of Jesus Christ went to the nations. And you can see again, you can see now the floor. There's a window where you can see the new floor plan and the ancient Byzantine floor plan. So the Roman Catholics have much money, and they can make very, very fancy churches over the old ones. Whatever churches that we still have are usually much poorer and smaller. On here, we are in the Gethsemane, so we are exactly east of the city, and we can see here the eastern wall of the city, and that is what's called the Eastern Gate, and you can see it's shut. Okay, and the reason why it was shut is because it was open until the year 621, On the year 614, the Persians went and sacked the city and took the cross of Jesus Christ. And then Heraclius went, Emperor Heraclius went and found the cross and got the cross from the Persians and brought it back. After the cross was brought back from this entrance back into the city, they felt that this is the same wall, this is the same entrance Jesus Christ came on the day of Palm Sunday. And remember, because we are in Mount Olives, Bethany is behind Mount Olives. Jesus Christ descended and then ascended and came through those ancient wall entrance, which is shut. So Heraclius felt that since Jesus Christ came through this entrance, and because the Holy Cross came again in 621 through this entrance, that they wanted to keep this entrance shut. Behind this wall is was the site of the actual Temple of Solomon, but now the Muslims have it, and it's the Rock of Dome. I can share a funny story if you want, with your permission. If you go back to if you go to the Eastern Gate again, 1 second, just quickly. So if you look on top of the Eastern Gate, there's like two little booths. Well, there's this Israeli people there with machine guns up there. Well, I did not know that. So I went and said, I want to go touch those walls up there. And I found some palms. So I went up to the walls up there and I was going, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. All of a sudden, now the Israeli people up there with the machine gun says, hold, don't move, whatever the case would be. This was my last, one of my trips working with you, my last day. And now it says wait, so they have to come down from all around from this wall, and I'm waiting now. And I said, I think I was going to be arrested by the Israeli police. And I tried to explain to them that the reason why I'm having these palms here is I'm not going to put any bombs and blow up the wall or anything like that. So finally they let me go. But that was a funny story that happened underneath this Eastern Gate.
It wasn't so funny at the moment for you, though.
It wasn't funny at the moment. I said to myself, great, now I'll be arrested and I'll probably miss my flight too.
Or worse. So now we're back in the Garden of Gethsemane, and this is built into the side, right, of the
church.
The church. Right?
And the ancient olive trees. And you can see the place of Gethsemane. So right now, right across the street from this is actually the tomb of Panagia. So we say it, and remember in the 15 days of August, it says, in the village of Gethsemane, bury my body. So I believe St. Helen also built this area, has been fixed through the years. It's 120 steps descent down there, and halfway down the descent is two other graves. On one side is the grave. So this now we're all the way at the bottom. This is the grave of Panagia, but halfway on the left and on the right, one is Joachim and Anna's grave
over here,
and on the other side is Joseph's grave.
Joseph. Or maybe it's Joachim and Anna on this side and Joseph.
Or reverse. I can't remember now either. Okay. But so as we were descending, they also have the graves. But Joachim and Anna did not die here, neither did Joseph, but they were placed there. Okay. And when you descend all the way to the bottom, this is the actual grave of Panagia. Of course, there's additions to it. If you look at the glass onto your left, you can see the actual cave that Panagia was buried in. Okay. And so you would enter this little entrance to the right. We see that the black color looks like a column. And once you go in and inside, you can actually see the tomb of Panagia. And over us is many candelia. Okay, many candelia there above us. The same thing is true in Golgotha. Behind the tomb of Panagia, we have this icon, which is Panagia, the famous icon of Panagia Hierosolymitissa, the Panagia of Virgin of Jerusalem. And Saint Paisios, when he had a vision of Panagia, he had also a vision of Jesus Christ, but Saint Paisios felt that he needed to paint an icon of Jesus Christ to depict how he saw Jesus Christ in his vision. But he did not bother painting an icon of Panagia. He says because the one of Panagia of Jerusalem is pretty accurate. He says that's the way Panagia looked like. So this is how Panagia most likely or did, I don't want to say most likely, did look like. And this is the icon that is found behind the tomb of Panagia. And this is the famous icon of Panagia of Jerusalem, Hierosolymitisa.
One year when I blessed, I think it was the first year that I came to Reading, Father, and I blessed everyone's home. I shared with everybody, it was only in Greek, but it was the story of how this icon, which is considered an icon not made by hands, came into existence. That it may look old, but it came in the 1800s, and that whole story of how the Panagia miraculously appeared to a nun that was at the monastery of St. Mary Magdalene, which is under the Russian Patriarchate, and she ran to tell her abbess that the Panagia had come and actually instructed her to make an icon of her, and she didn't know it was the Panagia at first. This woman just said, "Make an icon of me." She thought it was so strange. She said, "I don't paint pictures, I paint icons." And she said, well, I'll help you. And she asked, like, where am I going to get the supplies? And she said, I'll provide them. She leaves, she goes to tell the owner, she comes back, and this icon is in the room. So its history is this miraculously appearing icon, not made by hands, but it led to the wonderful kind of reconciling of the church at that time of the Patriarchate of Russia with Jerusalem. Here's the outside of the Dormition, right, Father?
Yes.
In the courtyard.
And this is the outside of the church we saw where Jesus Christ was praying. Just kind of weird modern Catholic things in the front. Yeah, I must say them what it is, okay?
Yeah.
Here is so behind the Mount of Olives. So again, I'm a map person. So we have the Holy Land. We have Jerusalem. You go down the valley of Kidron and Beth and how we say it, Beth next to me, Panagia, Gethsemane. Then you go up the hill of Mount Olives, and then you start descending on the backside, and it's what's called Bethpage, not in Pennsylvania, okay, guys. Bethpage, and it's next to Bethany, so they're really like all these things are next to each other. The only thing is now they're the Israelis have put a dividing wall. Okay, so Bethpage is on the Israeli side of the wall. Bethany is on the Palestinian side. So there's no way, right? It would only be like a 5-minute walk from Bethpage to Bethany. Nowadays would be a half-hour drive and going through checkpoint.
Maria talked about that last week, Father Gerasimos, because we showed at the very end a couple of pictures from the school, the Bethany school, and Sister Martha, now Mother Mary, who we met there, and wonderful, wonderful person and storyteller. But they used to take the kids and just walk from Bethany to the monastery. And like you said, it was like a 20-minute walk for them. And now it takes them hours, and they have to go through all the checkpoints if they're even allowed to go through because of that wall.
So in Bethpage is where, and I think only one of the gospel writers, maybe Matthew, mentions Bethpage. That's where Jesus Christ found the donkey in which he rode on the day of Palm Sunday. And there's a big celebration, and all the monks of the Holy Land come here, and they process down from Bethpage down Mount of Olives into Jerusalem itself. And there's an old Yaya nun here, very holy. She had beautiful stories. I haven't recorded them, I don't remember them, but very, very holy person. This nun here.
She was.
Remember her? Yeah. And she's all by herself, and she's scared. As a human being, she's scared. She trusts God, of course, but she's trying to keep this place. It's in a very Palestinian, even though it's in the Israeli side, but it's a Palestinian neighborhood, and she's afraid of being, I think, robbed and mugged and so forth. You can see there's some attempts of renovating this place. It's not the best iconography. And but definitely there's these people, like this one woman, forgot her name, Father, is just trying to keep this holy site that's not so popular, not so much known, alive. And you can see that on the backside. This is the place that Jesus Christ climbed and the stone where to climb on top of the donkey. That's what the stone is. And so you can see all these different picture icons of Palm Sunday.
Yeah, remember how so much philoxenia she showed us, and she made certain we all had something to drink and something to eat.
Yep. So you can see from here, Bethpage, and you can see that's the Mount of Olives on the backside, and you can see that it descends from the Mount of Olives. It descends over like a mile, well, 3/4 of a mile, all the way down to the Dead Sea, something like that in altitude. So like 800 meters above sea level, down to 400 below sea level. This is now on Mount of Olives, so we're all in the Mount of Olives area. This is the Pater Noster Monastery. This was more like in the medieval times, but this is Jesus Christ taught our Father who art in heaven. He also taught it on the Mount of Beatitudes, but we know we can see like in the Gospel of Matthew that some things there are repeated. So he taught up in Galilee, but he also taught up in Jerusalem. Okay, and here in this monastery we have in multiple languages, the I'm sorry for the phone ringing. It'll stop in a second. It's 3 rings and we're out.
Is that at your house? Okay.
It's at the church. Okay, so it's gone now. You know, I never answered those parishioners anyway. They're a nuisance, you know. I'm a 9 to 5 priest only. Okay, just kidding. So
he is the opposite of a 9 to 5 priest, everybody.
9 to 5:30. Okay, all right.
Yeah. From 9 at night until 5:30 the next afternoon and start over.
Okay, so here it has Our Father in many languages, and here I think it's in Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We had just gone to Project Mexico, so I wanted to take my picture in front of this. I actually even used a picture of this to read it when we used to read it in Spanish in Holy Cross in Strasbourg.
That's great.
Saint Kyrikos, for everyone who remembers the consecration of Saints Constantine and Helen, the church that we have now, Saint Kyrikos is one of the 3 martyrs who is in our church. It's the chapel at the cemetery in Holy Cross, but also the church here in Saints Constantine and Helen Reading. His relics are in our altar table. This is this across from I believe this is across from the site of the Ascension. And there's the Ascension.
This looks like the place of Ascension. So I remember when I told you my story. So the actual initial building here was built by St. Helen in a big hexagon. And you can see actually the exterior wall. This is the first part of the St. Helen, the small hexagon or octagon. Maybe I think it's an X. And then you can see the other bigger courtyard is a bigger hexagon, which was built later on. But this original site here, and now you have to pay the Muslims $1, maybe now it's $2 with inflation. And in here is the actual footstep that we saw that Jesus Christ, and from this point Jesus Christ ascended. And this is the actual footstep.
The original church built by St. Helen was the only church that had no roof. And understanding that, because of the Ascension, the disciples were looking up.
So you can see that I did not know that. So we can see that there's no roof on this courtyard.
Yeah. These are the graves of the Jews, right? Because they all want to be buried in this place. Isn't it called is it Jehoshaphat? Where they believe that the Messiah is going to come.
Yes, that is. I'm not sure the name of it. I think this is called the Kidron Valley, but definitely this reason why they want to be buried here is because of the fact that this is they believe that the Messiah will come. And we have a very beautiful view now. We're on the Mount of Olives, and you can see down on the right. We see the green on the right. That's where Panayia is buried. That's the Gethsemane area, and across you can see the Eastern Gate, right there. Well, a little bit left. The arrow, right there is the Eastern Gate, and then behind that, what all the green stuff is behind that. That was where the temple was, and where the actual gold dome is, right there. That's where the actual temple was, and now they have the Rock of Dome. And the building to the left, you see the building to the left, go straight left, left, a bit more, right, more right there with the gray dome, right there, go down, right there. That's a visiting church converted into a mosque. So there's two mosques on this big platform. You see the dome there, and this is dedicated to the Panayia, because remember Panayia lived for 12 years in for 12 years in the temple, so it was dedicated to the Panayia. On the left, all the way to the left, there's some no, go down, right there. That is up right there. That's the old steps that led up to the temple, from Zion leading up to the temple, because to your left is south. Okay, so just a little bit of the reality. And behind that church dedicated to Panayia, on the backside right there, that's where the Western Wall is. Okay, so we're on the east, and that's Western. So behind there, that's the only remnant of the old temple. A little bit of.
Can we see the dome of the Holy Sepulchre? Is that it right there, Father?
It's hard for me. I mean, let me see the bigger icon there. I'm not sure.
I thought it kind of shows up around the Dome of the Rock in some pictures. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, I think it might be cut out. It might be where the gray is section. Yeah, so.
Okay.
But it's more or less what we're pointing. So it's the actual tomb of Christ on the western part of this city. Okay, so right now in the corner, you see that big the corner of the city. That's the pinnacle, and that's where remember the devil took Jesus Christ and says, just jump off the pinnacle, and God will protect you. The third temptation, and Jesus, that's from the pinnacle. That's that corner right there of the temple area. For those who remember that he was tempted. Here on the Mount of Olives, there's something that unless you go there, you never pick it up, which is great. It's called the Mikri Galilea. So on the Mount of Olives, it was the campsite of the Galileans. Okay. Jesus Christ, remember they says that go to Galilee. Well, now I think this is the monastery of St. Gerasimos, but just stay there.
So I'll stay here. Mm-hmm.
I just stay here a second. So Jesus Christ says, go to Galilee and I'll meet you after the resurrection. Did not mean to go all the way up 70 miles to the area of Galilee, but it was the campsite of the Galileans. That's where the Galileans were stayed at. And this is right in Jerusalem. So because the disciples were in Jerusalem, they had come for the Passover, and then Jesus Christ was arrested and killed, and the third day he rose. So they would not travel all the miles up to go to Galilee, and they were here. So this is the place where Jesus Christ actually saw the disciples for the first time. That's why you see Matthew chapter 28, verse 18.
I think I have more pictures of it. I think these pictures are out of place.
These look like, yeah.
That's all. This is all.
St. Gerasimos Monastery.
St. Gerasimos, but I think I saw some more.
Well, you know what? Let's just stay there, because we know before we will be finishing very shortly. And I think it's not bad that we have taken that pause. Maybe next time we can show them the actual tomb of Christ and all that as another thing. But right now, let's just continue now. So as we have 5 more minutes, we talked about the monks that are protecting the monastery, all these holy sites. But the only places you see many multiple monks are the monasteries. And think about it that there used to be monastic centers. One of the monastic centers was the desert east of Jerusalem, and that's called the desert of I forgot what it calls the desert east of Jerusalem. There was a lot of monasteries there. There was 30,000 monks living there at one time.
The Palestinian desert, right?
The Palestinian desert, yes. And like Saint Gerasimos Monastery, Saint Sava Monastery, Saint Theodosius Monastery, Saint John the Baptist Monastery, John Josevid Monastery. Some of them have a bigger life, some of them have less life. And this is the monastery of Saint Gerasimos of the Jordan, the one who had the lion as a servant because he saw the lion who had a nail in his, or a thorn in his paw. And so as we see the Holy Land, there are still monastic centers. They're not hardly as big as what used to be. But St. Gerasimos Monastery has a new life because of the abbot there. I think his name was Chrysostomos.
Yeah.
And we're running out of time, so he really, he's Cypriot. And because of that, a lot of Cypriot people go to that monastery. And it's really a bustling hub of monasticism. And a lot of people, it's very popular. In particular, here is one of the caves. You can see the lion there. So I'm not going to explain all these things because we are running out of time. But definitely you can see how we can talk hours and hours and hours on just the pictures,
Yeah. So at this monastery, Father, it's believed to be one of the places that Jesus and Joseph, the Virgin Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus traveled on their way to Egypt and stopped. And that's why this particular icon called Galactotrophusa, Jesus, where the Virgin Mary breastfeeds Jesus as an infant. A very, very famous icon. You rarely see something like this. Yeah, she does look a lot like Gerasimos. Is that your mom? Is that Stella?
Where's my mom? What do you think?
Of course, I'm here.
Hello.
And I saw a picture of you with Presbytera near the baptismal font.
Thank
That
you.
was my highlight of the whole trip, seeing you baptized in Presbytera. It was an
Well, you know what?
amazing,
We'll go
amazing,
forward
amazing
to this picture.
experience.
We'll
I
stop.
cried through the whole thing.
we can this would be a nice place. And we
Oh
will
my
start with the
God.
baptism of Christ, right? So just to give you a little bit of, so the monastery of St. Gerasimos is really right by the Jordan River. Again, now from Jerusalem, you had to descend 800 meters to go to sea level, and another 400 meters to go below sea level. So Jericho and the Jordan River at this point, right about to enter into the Dead Sea, is 400 meters below sea level. This now is the actual site of Jesus Christ's baptism, and the Jordan River is this kind of muddy river, and we're on the Israeli side, and across the river is the Jordanian side. The Jordanian side a bit more Christian friendly. That's why you have actually a monastery next to it. And this side just opened recently for pilgrims. It was only open once or twice a year on the feast of Jesus Christ's baptism. So we actually had opportunity to actually get baptized. Of course, we believe in one baptism for the remission of sins. So this is more like a blessing baptism. It's not a real baptism. And we can see we wear our baptismal garbs, and we actually go inside the water. And myself and Father, what's your name? Father Theodore. I'm just kidding. And we went inside, and the water was cold because it was coming from the mountains of Lebanon. And we were in there, and we were blessed, all the people who came, all the pilgrims, and we went inside the water. So it was a great, I think, one of the most beautiful refreshing, amazing experiences of being baptized symbolically, of course, and as a blessing in the Jordan River.
Father, this was one of the highlights of my life, my wife's life.
And
She-
mine too, Father,
when-
just see
when
the
she-
two of you and
Yeah.
she going out in the water, you bringing her out of it. Oh, it was so beautiful. Every time I think of it, I always cry. I really mean that because it was one of the most lovely moments of my life, seeing the two of you together emerging from the water. Both of you was so beautiful.
Thank you,
And-
Steph.
And another thing that was amazing,
You know, my mom's
Father,
had the
was
last
that-
words, you know that, right?
yeah, you know
Yeah.
that, you know
Yeah.
how I am horrible. That is, yes, the waters were very, very cold, but as soon as you stepped into them, for some reason, the waters became very, very comfortable and very warm and most inviting. And you really did not feel the cold at all as you came out. I don't think so. So
I think it was numbness, but actually,
experience.
what I was saying is that so Presbytera, when she came into the Orthodox Church, came in through chrismation. She was just chrismated, and so she had sensed a lack of having the experience of the going down under the water and coming up. So when she got to be quote unquote rebaptized, when she got to have this experience of going down and up into the Jordan River, she truly felt a powerful sense of renewal. And
Yeah.
she even plans to, you see this robe that she's wearing right here, this is what she wants to be buried in. That's how important it is for her. So, but we'll stop here. Father Gerasimos, am I sensing that you're saying you're willing to continue to journey with us next week?
Let me check if the people want me to.
I will stop the share. We'll go to the
Well,
gap.
next week, though, we are starting the Paraclesis services, right?
What time do you, what time of day do you do them?
I do every night
At 7?
at 7.
Okay. So we have ours scheduled for a little bit earlier at 6. Would you be willing to come on after that? If we say we started at 8:30?
For you to start at 8:30?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll just move it to 8:30 so we can continue to have you take us along the rest of the trip, and ultimately we make our way into the Holy Sepulchre.
My opinion is, this is my opinion, and we have a group here, so your practice is at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
My opinion is you should start at 7:30 and I can jump in. I think that rather than starting at 8:30, then we're finishing at what, 9:30, 10? I think that's kind of late. So my opinion is you should start yours like 7:30 right after your practice service. And then I'll come in around 8:15, 8:30, around there, and I can join you for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever the case may be. That's my
We will
thoughts.
be obedient, Father. We will
No, I
start at
mean-
7:30, but I might
yeah,
not make very much progress, I have to tell you.
I mean, whatever the group wants, if the group wants to be that late, that's fine. Whatever, you see, there's right now, one person has to sign off, you see, so whatever you think, this is your group, you let me know, and I'm willing to chime in or start at 8:30, but it might be just running late after that. Not for me, but just for the group.
No, I appreciate that. So I will poll them. It's a little smaller number of people than we normally have, but I will ask everyone that's on and ask a few others and see. Maybe we'll start at 7:30, 7:45, and then just join in when you can, Father. Thank you so much. As you can see, everyone, you understand now why it needed to be Father Gerasimos to take us through. You can see not only his insight, but how much he lives this. Suli, you have a quick question. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Okay.
Are there any questions? There might be some questions, though. It's just if you want to, I mean, I'm not rushing anybody to end. I'm just in case, just respecting people's time, but if there's any questions, I'm here.
We will collect them for our next session, Father.
Okay, sounds good.
Will you close us in prayer as well?
Okay. We thank you, Christ, the God, for bringing us together. We pray for the well-being of all the monks and nuns of the Holy Land as they work hard to keep these places alive. May we experience you not just simply at the Holy Land, but through the Bible, through our services, and through partaking of the Holy Communion. May you take care of the parish in Reading, Pennsylvania, and all the other parishes that participate in this group. And may we always have you dwelling in our hearts, together with your Father and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Father Erasmus. Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Thank
beautiful
you.
people.